guys, thanks for joining me for another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and today we are going to do a character guide on Laguna. Laguna just dropped last night, I believe, so very, very popular character. He's a very, very good character. He's the type of character I know a lot of people are going to be very interested in the character guide, so I'm trying to get this one out as soon as possible. But he is very good. He is incredibly good. He might be the new meta for like best friend unit in the game. He definitely fits that mold, and you'll find out why in a little bit. I think Garnet still fits that mold, obviously, as well. But I definitely think he now is going to like replace like Cloud of Darkness, kind of in that role that they were in. But we'll kind of talk about it in a minute. The thing with Laguna being such a good friend unit, depending on what you have on your friends list, you wouldn't necessarily have to pull for Laguna to get the benefit of him. He's obviously better in the party, but as a friend unit, he's really, really good, right? So in this video, let's take a look at the artifacts. We'll look at the spheres, and then we will jump into a showcase. Laguna is one of those characters that does have an extra weapon, so I do like to highlight that in these videos so that you guys don't forget to get that extra weapon. So we'll hop in, and I actually like the weapon gloss on it. I'm actually going to use it over as BT. Like, I don't know, the golden gun, it just looks like kind of fakey. It's like a super soaker or something. It's a little bit too much for me. So I actually like this, and it actually goes really well with his jacket. But this is the extra weapon. So it is called the Hellblow gun. And the Hellblow gun can only be purchased from the power token exchange. It's one of those World of Illusion weapons. It's a 15 CP weapon, so it's an extra 15 CP weapon passive to get. And it does party I Brave 20% and then speed plus 10% if your HP is above 50%. It's not like a make or break passive to have, but if you're someone that likes Laguna or you just always like to have your characters maxed, I mean, veteran players, like, Power Stones are not an issue. Like, everyone's got Power Stones. They're very easy to get, so don't fret about. But if you're a newer player and your Power Stones are more precious, it could be skippable for you, right? So that's just something to keep in mind there. Okay, so that's the extra weapon. So let's hop into artifacts. Artifacts are very easy. You want to go attack 108, charismatic aura boost. The charismatic aura boost increases brave damage dealt with group attacks by 5%. So I think Laguna, all but one of his attacks, I think is 35 as a single target with splash, but everything else he does is like group. So group attacks are pretty big on this guy, so that's a really good one. Max Brave 330 is also decent on him as well. Kind of whatever your preference is there, but I'm going with Attack 108 and then the C50 2-star. So then we're going to go ahead and look at the spheres here. So he does have some interesting sphere options. The A sphere is always like the big kind of open-ended one. He does do all range damage, so if there's like a specific range damage up one that you'd want to put on him, you totally could do that. Basically, you want attack or brave damage, which is pretty typical for most characters, right? I went ahead and went with Ciphers. So when dealing a critical hit with a group attack, raises attack by 10% for 6 turns. This is a pretty good one for Laguna, because so he specializes in debuffing and doing a lot of group attacks. So like spheres that work with those are good ones you could use, because not all characters do a bunch of group attacks. Not all characters do range damage, things like that. And not all characters do debuffing, right? So there's a lot of different things you can do with Laguna there. So I went with that for the A slot. Once again, look at what you have. Go for anything that would be like brave damage or attack there, okay? For the C slot, Alphanod is like probably one of the best C slots in the game, because it's just something that almost everyone can use. A lot of the C slots have like healing conditions on them, and like Laguna can't heal, so you can't really use those. Some people like to throw Ceodor on random characters. Ceodor's sphere actually makes it so the characters do heal that normally don't. So if you wanted to put a little healing on Laguna, you totally could do that. But if you're like running Garnet all over the place like I am, like Garnet's got you covered on healing, right? So it just depends on like the team comps you're doing and what you want to do there, right? But I think Alphanod's is good. Anytime you grant a buff, which pretty much every character in the game does a buff at some point. Like I don't know if I can think of a character that just doesn't do any buffs at all. So that raises the party attack by 5%, so I like that. Then the E slot. So the thing with Laguna, I think he does 5 debuffs on his own, so he only leaves 3 extra slots for debuffs, so he can get kind of cloggy with debuffs. You have to be careful on the team comps. You don't want to run him like with too many characters that like really depend on their debuffs, unless you know you've got room for them. And this includes calls as well, right? So because because Laguna, I don't know if I said Seymour somewhere else, but because Laguna takes up 5 debuff slots, you kind of want to avoid putting another E slot on that is going to do more debuffs, because you want to save your because most of the E sphere debuff slots are just going to be like fairly weak generic debuffs. So you want to save those slots for your really strong debuffs. And so Laguna is going to have 5 framed ones that you want to keep on. And then you want to leave those other 3 slots open. So I would avoid any E's that are going to put new debuffs on. I really liked Irvine's. I thought his was a pretty good one. When inflicting a debuff, which Laguna's job is to do debuffs, right? It increases his ranged attack by 15%. That's a pretty big attack buff. And it's only for range damage, and there aren't like a lot of crazy like range damage dealers out there. So I feel like Laguna is almost one of the best fits for Irvine's, and Irvine is actually dropping, I think, like next week. So there probably would be the chance for people to refine some Irvine spheres if you wanted to get some. But I liked Irvine here. I think Seymour, and maybe why I said Seymour, he was in my head, but Seymour is also a decent one you could use. Seymour and Yuffie, I believe, are just generic attack buff type deals. So those could be good as well. So that's what I'm rolling with on mine. I did do full spheres for all of them because I went pretty all in on my Laguna. So if you saw my summoning video, you'll notice I have the BT right now. I did not get the BT in my summoning video, but I got his LD fairly harmlessly. And the thing is the rest of Laguna's cycle is really bad. Like Irvine isn't great, and Thancred isn't good either. So they're not characters I want to go in with gems on their banners. If I'm still really heavy on tickets, I'll just throw tickets at them to maybe get the LD for like a video, but I don't want to go all in for a BT. So it worked out that I actually had enough BT tokens. So I just tokened the BT, and I'm just going to pray that I don't get the BT on my ticket summons later if I decide to go in with tickets. That would be a huge bummer because then I basically turned my 50 BT tokens into 5, and that would be really bad. So normally, guys, the recommendation is if you're going to token something like a BT token, you wait till the cycle is done and you know you haven't pulled it. Because like I could get the BT on a free multi, I could get it with tickets. Like I'm taking a little bit of a gamble here. So far, every time I've taken this gamble, it hasn't bit me yet. But who knows? We'll see what happens. So anyways, that's Artifacts and Spheres. So let's go ahead and hop into a showcase, show you how he works. We got the Garnet Ramza sandwich going. We're going to make Laguna look really good. Laguna does pair really well, though, with, like, Turn Hogs. And you'll find out why in a minute when we get in there. So, like, Terra, who happens to be out at the same time. The only reason I didn't include Terra in here is I want to give her her own video, and I kind of don't want to spoil, like, her performance. So, Terra is, like, really good with Laguna, though, because she Turn Hogs. And she can just sit and let Laguna stuff ride. So, we'll hop in. I'm doing the Edgar Lufenia Plus just to have something to throw him in on. So, yeah, let's see how this goes here. We will see. So basically, Laguna's 15 and 35. They're kind of going to be filler attacks. They just put some generic debuffs on the enemy, and then they do some generic buffs for Laguna. Basically, his 15, his 35, they do defense down, speed down, and attack down on the enemy. So they're like those type of generic buffs. And then what the EX does is the EX applies all 3 and frames them. So like between those 3 attacks, you're getting all those debuffs. Let's go ahead and do this. So that's 3 of the frame debuffs, right? So we're going to do that with Garnet. Let's get rolling here with one of these. And what I'll probably do is I'm just going to get basically Garnet and Ramza. I'm just going to try to get them set up. And I'm just going to jump in the burst phase with Laguna probably. So let's do that. Let's do that. All right, so what I'm going to highlight with Laguna, it's really his LD and his BT. Like, his BT effect is what makes him busted. So, I do feel like Laguna is one of those characters that, it's like Machina. Not probably as extreme. Like, Laguna definitely can be decent, like, LD only. It's not as extreme as, like, Machina needing the BT effect. But, dude, if you have Laguna's BT, he's just, like, way better. That's, like, what puts him over the top. The BT effect is pretty darn important. And we will talk about that as we get into it, right? So let's go ahead and let's start with some of this. And then we'll go ahead and do a little pushback. We'll do the LD here with Ramza. That's my one nitpick with Ramza is like get his full potential. He needs a little bit of build-up, right? You have to get 2 of his shout stacks, and then you'd want to use the BT attack to like fully have like everything going. But that's all right. And I don't care that they don't launch. That's totally fine. All right, so let's have a turn with Laguna here. So like I said, the 15 and 35, what I'll probably do is I'll just wait and show those during the BT phase. But Grenade is like an AoE attack. Like I said, does some generic debuff. So it's going to do defense down and speed down. And then shotgun is single target with splash. I think it's his only single target attack that he has. And that's going to do an attack down. Okay, so that's kind of what those do. I'll show them off later, right? His AA just increases like debuff damage. So like as long as the enemies are debuffed, that's all really good to go there, right? Okay, so we'll do that. And then let's go ahead and we're actually going to use the burst attack. Yes, because Laguna should get another turn. So let's just do the burst attack so we can show this off. So his burst attack's just going to do a lot of damage, right? But it's going to inflict a gold debuff called Desperado. And this thing is ridiculous. So basically his LD effect, you can kind of think of it like Squall. His LD effect is basically like anytime he does damage or attacks, he follows up with the LD attack. That's pretty much exactly like what Squall does, which makes sense because they're like related, right? But what the BT effect does says anytime the enemies take HP damage, Laguna will follow up. So now he's turning into like a Cloud of Darkness follow-up character, which is why he's a good friend unit if you have a green one, right? So let's go ahead and like with Garnet here, we should do HP damage and we should get a follow-up here. Well, and Garnet's got her own going, right? Yep, and then there's the Desperado. So it's not like a full LD attack or whatever, but it did like that was 200k AoE, right? And the thing is that's going to be popping off every time they take HP damage. So like Ramza, well, he still needs to do a shout yet. How? Okay, shout will bring him up a little bit. Let's do that. Sure, we'll do that. And then, yep, there's Desperado, right? So now here's the thing. So Ramza's not fully built up or whatever, but I just want to get Laguna's thing going. So let's just hop into burst mode and we can just talk about Laguna here. So you can see there's that gold Desperado buff, right? And then also what happens is it does like HP damage cap up and stuff. And a lot of these like insane parts of the passive does scale on debuffs. So the more debuffs that are on the enemy, the more impressive all of Laguna's kit is looking. So that's basically what you want to do with Laguna. I kind of think of them like Cloud of Darkness a little bit, where beginning of a fight, I would just open burst attack and like get the burst buff up like right away. And then just try to keep debuffs on all the enemies. Manage your buffs with Laguna, like balance your attacks out. But bring like turn hoggers or turn manipulators. So like Rem would work really well. Lightning would work really well. Terra, like characters like that. And then you just abuse the Desperado, right? And so Desperado, that's going to be going off here. Now, we didn't really show the LD yet, so let's do the LD. Because now, see, he does this big laser attack. And now he's going to be like Squall, where he gets that followed up. Yep, and that's from the buff. So we got that. And then we'll let this go through. But then there's Desperado. So here's the thing. When Laguna attacks, he's getting whatever his base attack is. He's getting the LD follow-up, and he's getting Desperado. So it's like an attack with two follow-ups. So you see how the damage gets kind of crazy around here, right? So we've got that going on. And then the buff from that we just did from the LD, that's called Look the Fairies Are Here. And that gives him a nice attack buff, and it gives him HP and damage increase. And then that's what triggers the LD after each. So that's like absolutely ridiculous. So you just want to upkeep that buff. And just, you know, it's not a big deal if it falls off. If you just notice, hey, my Laguna's not following up, then go ahead and use it again, right? So let's pop off. Well, since we got a free move here, let's do Grenade. So like I said, this is just AoE, just generic debuffs, right? Like pretty basic. But look, even though that was a weaker attack, he's got the double follow-ups, and the damage is getting, it just keeps popping on top of each other, right? So then we've got that. Okay, and then here's the EX. So the EX, if his debuffs, like his generic ones, if they're not framed yet, this is going to apply all three of them. Attack down, speed down, defense down, and then it frames them. And so the EX is going to do that, and then follow up, and then we're going to have Desperado after it. So like, the damage here gets kind of insane very quickly. And the nice thing is let's say you're running like Machina in the team comp, or a different character that you think would do more damage in their burst phase. Although Laguna does really well in his own burst phase. We'll see the damage here because he's getting his own follow-ups, right? So when you do shotgun, so you see shotgun, yeah, good damage. And then doing all this. Yeah, just popping. Like, I think that, like, when you combine the two attacks was like 800 or 900k AoE, right? And that's just popping off. Like, Grenade itself isn't that strong, but then when you follow up with this and Desperado, like, the damage adds up pretty darn quick. And the thing with Laguna, he's not like a selfish unit. Like, he's providing like HP damage up and stuff like that to the party. And then through debuffing, he's making the party look better. So this is a very common occurrence. You should be seeing the enemies with like 8 debuffs on, like very commonly with Laguna on your team, right? And sure, let's just do a regular HP attack. And then bam, this is going to pop off. And then we're going to pop off again. Yep. And then just do a bunch of damage. And then we've got the actual burst attack here, which we saw earlier. So we'll just do that again. Desperado. And so the Desperado debuff, it's only 6 turns on the enemies, right? So you want to be careful. You know, it could drop off the enemies pretty quick if they're fairly aggressive. But like I said, if you're doing turn manipulation and speedsters, like those enemies are going to drop really quick, right? And so you can see we've basically got this thing won at this point. The enemies are about to tick their orb, so it's not like we're not in the clear yet, but I think if we just put up a Ramza here, if we just go like this, Ramza burst attack. Well, he's only single target, I think. So yeah, one of the enemies will get a turn, but then I think Garnet would finish. But that's basically it. So let me know what you guys think of Laguna. Once again, he's a character I would say just do the burst attack right away, get Desperado on. And then just balance the 15, 35, and EX. I would use the LD early on as well. So you could LD first if you want to have the LD follow-ups right away and then go into burst attack. But some combination of burst and LD right away, and then just go between 15 and 35. Use your EXs here and there. Refresh the LD when you need to. Use burst mode whenever you want to. I would just make sure that if you're using Laguna's burst, go into burst mode when the enemies still have at least 1 turn of Desperado on, so that you're getting those follow-ups every single attack on burst phase. So Laguna's fantastic. Like, he's a great character. So if you're someone that's been waiting, or you're a newer player, like who's the next guy to summon for, Laguna is a really good pick. So anyways, thanks for watching. We'll catch you all on the next one.